"You may now kiss the bride," the priest announced, but McCollum didn't move. His lips hovered near mine, barely brushing the air, like even this lie was too heavy to finish. The applause rose anyway, loud, hollow, mechanical. I stood there, eyes open, heart clenched like a fist, knowing what no one else did. I wasn't supposed to be standing here. Miriam was. His real bride. The woman he still loved. The one sitting 5 rows back wearing a pale pink dress that wasn't subtle enough to hide her satisfaction. I saw it. That glimmer in her eyes. The pride. The cruelty. The win. They had planned everything so perfectly. A delay here, a push there, and I became the stand-in. The safe option. The spare. No one noticed the change, because they never really saw me to begin with. McCollum didn't. My friends didn't. Even my parents had smiled like it was a miracle anyone wanted me at all, and I accepted it. I accepted being a consolation prize dressed in white until the night after the wedding. When I found Miriam's letter folded neatly under the mattress, next to the gift McCollum never gave me. "You were always second choice." He still whispers my name in his sleep. "Enjoy your crown, Kathy. It was never yours." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I climbed onto the balcony of our honeymoon suite, barefoot, silent, and numb. The city below glowed like 1,000 indifferent eyes. And when I let go of the railing of the lie of the future I never chose, it was almost a relief. But fate isn't always merciful. I woke up in my old bedroom, 1 week before the wedding, and this time I wouldn't walk down that aisle like a fool. This time I'd let the real bride watch me take everything, just to throw it in her face. The first time I met McCollum, he was with Miriam. They were the perfect couple, polished, untouchable, lit from within by that golden kind of love you only see in romance movies. She had a way of making people look at her like she'd invented elegance, and McCollum? He stood beside her like he knew he'd won the lottery. I was just the girl standing beside Jason, McCollum's best friend, at some charity auction neither of us cared about. I didn't wear designer. I didn't flirt. I didn't shine. I watched, and McCollum didn't notice me. Not that night. Not for many nights. But when things ended between him and Miriam, quietly, suddenly, with no explanation, he started showing up at events alone. Then he started sitting next to me, laughing at my dry remarks, offering to drive me home when Jason was too drunk to remember my name. I thought I was imagining it at first. The shift, the weight of his attention. But then came the messages, the long conversations, the invitations, the quiet walks in the park, and the way he started opening up about things no one else knew, about his business, his family, his fears. It was easy to fall in love with him. He wasn't charming the way Jason was or magnetic like Miriam. He was still, composed, sharp in a way that felt dangerous, but only if you were foolish enough to underestimate him. I didn't. I respected him, admired him. And when he asked me to move in with him, it felt like proof that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally chosen me. The proposal came 6 months later. He didn't kneel. There was no fanfare, just a quiet dinner, a box on the table, and a tired smile. "I'm ready," he said. "You're the one I can build a future with." I didn't know what that meant. At the time, the one I can build with. Not love, not I can't live without you, not you're everything I want. Just, you're stable, you're convenient, you're safe. I said yes anyway, because after a lifetime of being forgotten, overlooked, and talked over, safety felt like a miracle. Miriam was nowhere to be seen. She didn't call, didn't crash the engagement party, didn't send snide messages or cryptic threats. She waited. She waited until exactly 2 weeks before the wedding, when I was up to my ears in table charts and floral disasters. That's when the letter came. No name, just a clean ivory envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of my car. I remember opening it, my hands cold even in the heat of the afternoon. You should ask him what he was doing 3 nights before he proposed. To you, better yet, ask him who he was with. There was no signature. But I didn't need one. It was her. I tore the letter in half and told myself it didn't matter. That he chose me. That he loved me. That he was marrying me. I didn't ask him about the letter. I didn't mention Miriam. I let it eat away at me, in silence. The cracks began to show in small ways. His distracted eyes, the way his phone was suddenly face down during dinner, the way he slipped outside for calls every time I entered a room. I started to wake up before he did just so I could watch him sleep, because sleeping McCollum was honest. And more than once, in that soft, unconscious mumble, he said her name. Not mine. Her name. Miriam. I cried in the shower. I went through his drawers. I checked his browser history and his messages, found nothing but that thick, choking sense that I was playing a part in someone else's story. Still, I walked down the aisle. Still, I wore the dress. Still, I said, I do. I kissed him, even though I knew he was thinking of her, and when I stood on that balcony later that night, with her letter clutched in one hand and the edge of the railing in the other, all I could feel was this. I had been the stand-in. The prop. The backup bride. When the railing gave way, I didn't scream. I didn't reach out for help. I let go. And when I opened my eyes again, when the past melted away and I saw that familiar, hated wallpaper from my childhood, I didn't gasp. I didn't panic. I smiled. Because I remembered everything. And this time, McCollum wasn't going to leave me at the altar for her. This time, I'd make sure Miriam watched the wedding. From the crowd, Miriam's voice was the first thing I heard in this life. Not directly, just an echo through the walls, faint laughter, her name spoken by someone else. McCollum. I stood in the hallway outside his office, his in the future, but, in this version of my life, still just a private study in his family's estate, and watched the sliver of light beneath the door. Watched it flicker. Watched it hold. You're sure she doesn't suspect anything? Miriam's voice asked, a pause. I'm handling it, he said. My stomach tightened. The day hadn't even started yet. This time around, I didn't confront him. I didn't storm in or demand explanations. I went to my room, shut the door, and stared at the mirror. My reflection was still unfamiliar. Youthful, smooth, unlined by betrayal or grief. I was 18 again. My skin glowed with the kind of innocence I no longer felt entitled to wear. I whispered the words out loud just to feel them pass my lips. I died. And I had. Thrown off that balcony. Whether it was an accident or fate, it didn't matter now. All I knew was that it had ended there, and started again here. The betrayal wasn't new. It was simply earlier. Back then, I'd believed in the idea that maybe I was enough to make McCollum forget her. But love built on lies doesn't forget anything. It only delays. The next few days passed in a blur of dresses, flowers, and fittings. McCollum smiled like a man checking boxes. I played along even as I mapped out my plan in silence. Every time he held my hand, I counted how many seconds until he looked away. Every time we kissed, I tracked how long it took before he reached for his phone afterward. He wasn't cruel. That was the worst part. He wasn't vicious or obvious or distant. He was adding kind. The kind of kind you give to someone when you feel sorry for them. Like a man feeding a bird he's planning to release the moment its wing heals. I watched him more than I loved him. Studied him. Noted every pattern, every absence, every secret call. It didn't take long to find her. Miriam was careful, but not careful enough. A private number popped up on his phone screen every night at 11:13 p.m. He'd answer quietly, step outside the room, and return 15 minutes later with the same blank face. He didn't think I noticed. And the truth was, before, I wouldn't have. But I'd lived this already. And this time, I was wide awake. I walked past his study one afternoon and slipped a recorder beneath the potted plant by the door. It was an old trick, one I remembered, from a documentary I watched on a sleepless night in my old life. I never imagined I'd need it. The next morning, I played it back. Static, then breathing, then her voice. You're sure she's still going through with it? She has no idea. And afterward, a pause. His voice dropped, lower, heavier. We'll figure that out once the paperwork is done. I stopped the recording. That was enough. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I didn't even feel heartbroken, just cold, steady, because the worst betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, woven into the fabric of your daily life until it becomes invisible. I went to the bridal shop that afternoon for my final fitting. The dress was the same one from before. White, lace, slightly off the shoulder. The one I used to dream about. I stared at myself in it, the way it clung to me like a costume I hadn't asked for. The tailor fussed with pins. My mother beamed. McCollum sat in the corner scrolling through emails, pretending to be too busy for opinions. And I just stood there, smiling politely, thinking about how this would all look on camera, because this time, the wedding wasn't going to end in silence. It was going to end in a show. I began collecting everything: screenshots, text logs, copies of call records. I borrowed Jason's tablet one afternoon and accessed an old group chat McCollum had forgotten to delete. There they were, his messages to Miriam, right before our engagement. I can't stand hurting her. She doesn't even suspect. She's good on paper. It wasn't even rage that hit me then, it was clarity. I wasn't chosen. I was calculated. A move on a chessboard between two people who never saw me as anything more than a piece. That night, McCollum touched my face while we lay in bed. His fingers were gentle, careful, like he was handling glass. "Are you happy?" he asked softly. I turned to him, kissed his forehead, and smiled. "I'm the happiest I've ever been." And I meant it, because nothing felt better than knowing I had the truth, and soon they'd both know what it felt like to be the one left watching. I couldn't sleep. Even when the room was dark and silent, even when the sheets were warm and the pillows soft, something inside me stayed wide awake, watching, waiting. I would lie there for hours, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly above me, the shadows bending with each rotation, the silence growing thicker with every minute that passed. Because I didn't feel like a person anymore. I felt like a ghost living a life that didn't belong to me. Everything I said was rehearsed. Everything I did was calculated. My smile was measured, my voice tuned for softness, my steps feather-light so no one heard the weight I was carrying. McCollum didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't care. He still brought me coffee in the mornings, still kissed my cheek before meetings, still called me his girl in front of friends. And yet, every time he looked at me, I could feel the absence. The space where love should have been. I stopped asking myself if he cared. That wasn't the question anymore. The question was how long I could carry this act before it broke me. There were moments, small, sharp ones, where my mask nearly slipped. When I saw his phone light up and the name M flashed across it, when he walked into another room to take the call. I would sit on the couch, hands clenched, breath shallow, heart pounding like a warning siren that no one else could hear. I started second-guessing myself. What if I was wrong? What if I had imagined it? What if it wasn't betrayal, but paranoia, trauma, clawing back from the grave to haunt me? Then I'd remember the voice on the recorder. The way he said her name. The way they spoke about me like I was a problem to be solved. It wasn't paranoia. It was reality, carefully gift-wrapped in pretty lies. There were days I couldn't even meet my own eyes in the mirror. I would glance and turn away, unable to look at the girl in the reflection because she didn't look like someone worth choosing. She looked like someone surviving. That was the word that clung to me. Survival, not love, not happiness. Not joy, just endurance. Every laugh with friends, every bite at dinner, every walk through the florist or taste test with the catering team, It all became performance. I played the role of a happy bride so perfectly that even I began to forget where the act ended and I began. But behind the act, I was suffocating. At night, I dreamed of the fall, of the balcony, of that final moment before the world went white. Sometimes I woke up gasping, reaching for something that wasn't there. A part of me still expected to die all over again. There was a moment in the middle of the night when I stood by the window in the old family estate. The sky was dark. The stars were blurred behind a thin layer of clouds. I pressed my forehead to the glass, cold against my skin, and whispered, "Why me?" I wasn't angry at fate. I wasn't even angry at McCollum or Miriam. I was angry at myself, forever thinking that being chosen by someone like him would make me feel whole. I had spent so long trying to become someone worthy of being loved that I didn't stop to ask why I needed to be loved by someone like that in the first place. I didn't want revenge because I hated them. I wanted revenge because I hated who I became for them. That was the struggle. I wasn't trying to hurt them back. Was trying to save myself. To peel away everything that had been forced on me. Every expectation, every label, every role I never asked to play. And just stand there, alone, and know I was enough. But I wasn't there yet. Not fully. There were still nights where I clutched the ring box and wondered what it would feel like to let go. To leave before the wedding, to disappear again, to vanish without needing a spectacle, without needing to prove a point, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me break or seeing me win. But I stayed. Because this time, I didn't want to disappear quietly. I wanted to stand at the altar with my head high, my spine straight, and let the cameras flash as I handed McCollum his lies back. Let them watch me walk away. Let Miriam sit there in the crowd and see exactly what she was never going to have again, not McCollum. Me, because no matter what he felt for her, he would never forget the day the backup bride beat them both at their own game. I thought I had accounted for everything. The calls, the messages, the whispers behind closed doors. I had tracked the betrayal down to the minute, the heartbeat, the breath. But I didn't expect Jason. He was always the background presence, loyal, quiet, McCollum's best friend, the kind of man who laughed at all the right moments and kept your secrets without asking questions. And I had been one of those secrets, not in the way people think. He was never in love with me, but he knew. The entire time. He knew about McCollum and Miriam. He had seen them together after the engagement. He had covered for him, lied for him, run interference when Miriam showed up uninvited and insisted she was just dropping off something. He even helped McCollum delete messages before handing me the phone during one of our arguments in the old timeline. And I never knew. Until now. It was an accident. A conversation I overheard when I wasn't supposed to be home. McCollum and Jason, in the lounge, voices low but urgent. "She's starting to ask questions," McCollum muttered. "So? You're almost at the finish line. Just marry her and clean it up later," Jason said. "You've come this far." She's not stupid. She's not Miriam either. Silence. That silence said more than either of them ever could. I stepped back from the door before they heard me, my hand shaking around the water glass I never drank from. Jason knew. And somehow, that betrayal sliced deeper than McCollum's, because Jason had watched me fall in love, had seen the doubt creep in behind my smile, had stood beside me while I planned the wedding and pretended like he believed in it. He hadn't just watched me suffer, he had allowed it, because keeping McCollum's secret mattered more than telling me the truth. That night I confronted him, not with anger, but with silence. We sat on the rooftop of the estate, the wind cold, the sky wide. "Do you remember the night McCollum proposed?" I asked quietly. Jason looked away. "Of course." "You stood beside me, smiled, told me he was lucky to have me." I meant it. "No, you didn't." He flinched. "Just slightly." "I know," I said. "About Miriam, about the cover-ups, about the messages." He didn't deny it. "I thought you'd leave," he said after a long pause. When you found out. I didn't think you'd still go through with it. I stared at him. That's where you're wrong. I'm not marrying him because I love him. Jason looked confused. Then why? Because people like you and McCollum, you think women like me always fold. Always take the fall. Always disappear quietly. He opened his mouth, but I stood. I'm not the woman you think I am anymore, and I wasn't, not even close. The next morning, I went to the tailor again. I told her I needed a second dress, not white, not bridal, not soft. I wanted emerald green, the kind of green that makes people stare, the kind of green Miriam once wore to a gala when McCollum couldn't take his eyes off her. The tailor raised her brows. For the reception? She asked. For the ending? I said, because now I had 2 enemies and one final scene left to plan. The day arrived like a performance I had already memorized. The dress hung perfectly on my frame, the same one from the last timeline. Off-shoulder, lace, pure white, the kind of gown designed to make people believe in love. I didn't believe in anything anymore. Just precision. My hair was styled the same way it had been before. Soft curls, pinned to one side. A look he once said made me look like someone worth marrying. He never said someone he loved. The venue buzzed. Photographers swarmed like flies around a sugar-coated lie. Guests laughed and whispered and posed in pastel gowns and sleek black suits. McCollum stood at the altar, tall and devastatingly composed, like he was born to stand on stages he never earned. And there, 5 rows back, sat Miriam. Not in ivory this time, but emerald. The same shade I had asked for my second dress. A silent, war declared across silk and sequins. She smiled, smug, relaxed, like she was watching a rerun of her favorite show, knowing exactly how it would end. I met her gaze once. Only once. Then I looked away. Not because I was afraid, because she wasn't the audience I came for. McCollum was. The music began. Soft, orchestral, dramatic in a way that made my stomach twist. I walked down the aisle slowly, each step more deliberate than the last. My father offered me his arm. I didn't take it. I didn't need anyone to give me away. I arrived alone. McCollum took my hand like it was a habit. Ready? He whispered. I nodded. Not to agree, just to move the scene forward. The officiant began his script. Friends, family, love, commitment. Words, meant for fairy tales, I let them wash over me like static. When the vows came, McCollum looked into my eyes like a man trying to convince himself of something. I promise to honor you, he said, to protect you, to build a life together. Not a single mention of love. Then it was my turn. I reached into the bodice of my dress and pulled out the folded letter. Not Miriam's, mine. I unfolded it slowly, the paper stiff, creased, worn from nights of rereading. The room grew quiet. I wrote my vows too, I said. A pause. But I'm not going to say them. Gasps echoed through the crowd. McCollum's fingers twitched at his side. I'm not going to say them, I repeated, because this marriage is a lie. The silence exploded into murmurs. I am not the woman McCollum wants to marry. I am the woman he settled for. His face paled. I was the convenient choice, the placeholder, the name that fit the paperwork when the woman he really loved couldn't. Commit! I turned to the crowd. To Miriam, I said. Her face froze, eyes wide, lips parted like the air had turned to ice. She's sitting right there, I said, pointing. Wearing the same shade of green she wore when McCollum told her he'd fix everything. And I'm sure he thought he did. Until now. Jason stood from the groomsman's side, moving quickly toward the altar, but security stepped in. Because I planned for that. I have proof, I said calmly, holding up the envelope I had tucked. Into my bouquet, photos, messages, call logs, the audio recording from the week before. It's all here. Everything you need to know about what this man really thinks of me, of marriage, of loyalty. McCollum stepped forward, reaching for my hand. Kathy, don't, I said. He stopped. I loved you. I gave you every piece of myself. Even after I died, I came back trying to believe that maybe, just maybe, you could change. Murmurs turned to silence again. You died? Someone whispered behind me. I ignored it. I believed I was lucky to be chosen. But now I know. You don't get to choose someone just because they're willing. I turned to Miriam. And you, she, stiffened. You thought you won, that you could sit there in your expensive dress and watch me humiliate myself. I smiled. You didn't win. You were replaced. Her expression cracked. Just slightly. I'm not here to fight over him. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to walk away. And let you both sit in the mess you created. I dropped the bouquet, turned, and walked down the aisle the same way I came. Alone. The crowd parted in stunned silence. Cameras flashed, this time not for celebration, but for chaos. And I smiled through it all, because every step I took was mine. Backstage, the green dress waited. I slipped out of the white gown like it was a skin I'd shed for the last time. My second dress fit better. Like truth. Like power. Maria met me at the back door with my suitcase already in the trunk. You sure you want to leave this fast? She asked softly. I nodded. There's nothing left to say. Behind us, I heard shouting. McCollum's voice. Miriam's, Jason's protests. I didn't turn around. I didn't flinch. I got into the car, closed the door, and drove away. I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just breathed. Deeply, fully. Like someone who had finally stepped out of the cage and into her own life. At the first stoplight, I opened my phone, deleted my wedding profile, blocked McCollum, blocked Jason, saved the last text from Maria. Proud of you. Then I opened a blank notepad and started writing my story. Not the one they gave me, not the one they twisted. Mine. The news spread faster than wildfire. By the time I reached the next city, the wedding video had already gone viral. Someone in the crowd, probably a guest who couldn't resist the drama, uploaded the footage. My dress, my voice, the moment I called Miriam out in front of everyone. The envelope, the bouquet drop. McCollum's stunned silence. Miriam's face stiff with panic. It was all there, online, looped into thousands of reaction videos. The backup bride who walked out. The real bride watched from the crowd. Kathy's revenge, a masterclass in walking away. I didn't speak publicly. I didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. Sterling and Carrington, the consulting firm McCollum had recently partnered with, cut ties within 48 hours. The scandal was too loud, too damaging. Their brand couldn't survive being associated with a man who misled his own fiancée and tried to save face through silence. And Miriam? She tried to deny everything, said it was fake, manipulated, taken out of context. But truth doesn't bend to convenience. One of the bridesmaids leaked a screenshot of Miriam's messages confirming the affair. Another shared a private video of McCollum and Miriam arguing after the ceremony, her screaming, him silent, the tension thick enough to strangle. Jason tried to contact me. 17 calls, 9 emails, 1 letter mailed to my temporary apartment. Didn't open it. They weren't sorry. They were just exposed. And exposure was always the thing they feared most. I moved into a quiet apartment 3 cities away. Nothing extravagant, just space. A small balcony, a clean kitchen, sunlight in the morning and silence at night. I got a job at a nonprofit, one that helped women recover from financial and emotional abuse. I didn't give interviews. I didn't want attention. I just wanted purpose. There was peace in that, knowing that my pain hadn't gone to waste, knowing I could turn what they did to me into something stronger than vengeance. But I wasn't finished. McCollum still had one thing left. His pride. His company's shares had dropped after the scandal, but he still held on, clinging to the empire he'd built with lies and manipulation, until the audit came. 3 months after I left, I sent the files anonymously. Documents Jason once left on a USB at McCollum's office, emails, transactions, backdoor. Deals that violated 3 different ethical clauses. I didn't need credit. I didn't need my name on anything. I just needed them to fall. And they did. The firm collapsed under pressure. Lawsuits followed. Partners abandoned ship. And McCollum? He disappeared from social media. His house went up for sale. Word spread he left the country. Maybe Dubai, maybe Switzerland. No one knew. But I knew what it felt like to lose everything. And now, so did he. As for Miriam, she rebranded herself as a relationship coach online. Her videos were polished, her smile forced. The comment section, however, wasn't forgiving. They remembered. They always do. She went private a week later. And me? I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just one line on expensive paper. You win. I burned it. Not out of hatred, but because it meant nothing to me anymore. Winning wasn't the goal. Freedom was. The true kind. The kind where you wake up every morning knowing no one owns a piece of you, where your silence is your own and not the punishment someone else forced on you. I stood by my window one night, looking out at the street below. Lights flickered in the distance. Somewhere, a car engine hummed. In another apartment, someone laughed, and I smiled. Not because of the downfall, but because of the rise. Mine. I thought I needed McCollum to choose me to be worthy. I thought I needed Miriam to lose to feel victorious. I thought I needed revenge, to be whole again, but I didn't. All I needed was for them to see me walk away, not broken, not bitter, but untouchable. A woman they could never twist again, one they'd never see coming next time, because this wasn't just the end of their story, it was the beginning of mine, and I had all the pages left to write.